Hello, everybody. It's Kalinsky. Um, this is gonna be my part two to the first video that I made about the power toy computer engineering. In this video, I'm thinking that I'm gonna go over some more elements of the powder toy, like some more of your electronic elements. Excuse me, as well as going into logic gates. So this should be fun. This should be fun. Excuse me. Okay. So last time we left off talking about metal, type B silicon, type P silicone, type N silicone, uh, battery switch, instant, piston, and I think that was it. We also briefly visited all of the categories. Go see part one, which is right there in the top right corner of the screen, I think. Go visit part one if you do not know what any of those are. If you do know what they are, great, stay here. In this video, I'm going to be going over the semiconductors, insulated wire, and three different logic gates: the NOT gate, the AND gate, and the OR gate. So let's get straight into this. So, as we discussed in the last video, metal is your most basic conductor. Type P and type N silicone are your two, I guess, semiconductors, but they're not semiconductors. Not in the game files, they are not semiconductors. But they do have their own special purposes. So, let's go ahead and start where I told you I would start, which is insulated wire. So, insulated wire is an interesting type of wire. Insulated wire will not conduct to any other conductor unless it is a silicone conductor. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to start off up here. So insulated wire, and let's go ahead and just put metal. So just, metal pole. There is a metal wire. There is a PSC, a type P silicone wire, type N silicone wire, our first semiconductor wire, our second semiconductor wire, our instant wire. Did I already put regular metal? I did put regular metal. Wild World wire, and we went over gold yesterday, or 2 days ago. So let's go over gold again. Now, you will see, whenever I spark through this, it should only spark, to my knowledge, both of our silicone wires. I think it's sparking the gold. So, it sparks that one. It skips over all of these. Sparks that one. And yes, it does spark the gold. Okay. Gold is a very special wire. I hardly ever use it. But as you can see, it sparks both of our silicones and our gold, but we never use gold. Unless you want like really fast transmission, but then you can just switch to instant wire, which is a lot faster. So, yeah. So that was insulated wire. It only conducts to your silicone and your gold wires, which is very, very nice to make because I don't believe metals can conduct to it either. So if I have a metal, yeah, metal does not conduct into it, but, big but here, you can put type P silicone right there and type N silicone right there, put a input wire and an output wire, boop, boop. So now you have a insulated wire, and most of the time, this has a few uses, like Let's just say I want a insulated wire. Oh, what did I do? I want a insulated wire and a metal wire right next to each other. As we know, two metal wires right next to each other, they will conduct to each other and essentially become one wire. And even if you space it out by one, you will still need to put insulator in between. With insulated wire, you no longer have to do that. They will conduct individually from each other. But Kalinsky, how do you make sure that your silicones do not conduct to the wires? Well, that's simple. Just take one out, and then put your type P silicone up here. Put this right here. One out, one out. And then I'm just going to use type N silicone and regular metal. So our input follows this wire strictly, and our input follows that wire strictly. So that's how you can have separated wires. You can get really nifty with it and make uh, a insulated wire, a metal wire, and then do like this, stagger in between them. This will take me a minute, but if you stagger in between them and then fill in the gaps with your semiconducting wires, you can get this really, really cool effect where this will only travel down that wire, your insulated wire will only travel down insulated, your metal only on metal, and your other semiconductor only on that semiconductor. So it makes this really, really cool effect. Anyway, let's get into both of our semiconductors. So, PTCT, or the more blue, I like to call it the blue semiconductor, or the cold semiconductor. I will refer to it as a cold semiconductor more often than I will refer to it as a blue semiconductor. You can use either name, or you can say PTCT. Um, this one only conducts when cold. So, let's go ahead and have both of these. Actually, I'm going to use one pixel just for the sake of it. I'm going to zoom in really far. So, right here, as you can see, conducts perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Let's put a battery so it's constantly conducting. And if I warm up that metal, boom, it stops conducting. It warms back up. It cools off. It cools off and it conducts. Warms up, stops. So, you know, and I will explain to you what that is in a minute. And then we have this semiconductor, which essentially what this one is it will conduct when hot. So right now, there's nothing. It's not doing anything. But if I go ahead and click this and warm up that metal, it is conducting. And if I let go, it goes off, no longer conducting. It is important to note both of your semiconductors can only conduct to your silicones. I believe they can only conduct to your silicones. Maybe gold. It might be able to conduct to gold because gold has that weird property that I talked about. So let's test that right here now. So let's go ahead and grab some gold. Put it right there. Be sure to insulate your electronics whenever you're doing these kind of tests. Put a battery right there. Insulator right there. Insulator right there. And put another battery right there. Let's warm up that metal. Yes, so it does conduct. For some reason, that one also conducts. Uh, no idea why that happens. That's odd. I think it's just jumping the gap. As we also discussed in the last video, gold has a very big gap jump, like a jumping gap, which is basically when the electricity from one wire jumps over to the other wire or arc. It's you could call it an arc or a jump. In the powder toy, it's called a jump. In real life, I'm pretty sure it's called an arc. Um, Either way, I just discussed both of those, so it will conduct to gold, no other metal to my knowledge, and your silicones, as well as, each other. So, what can we do with these? Well, we can make logic gates and logic units. Let's start. I hope my I hope my uh whenever I talk it's not like maxing out my mic. Probably is. Anyway, um let's make a NOT gate. So what a NOT gate essentially is an inverter gate. Or when we have because I'm going to talk in binary code or just binary, not really code. I don't really do coding. So, we have a 1 as our input, okay? If we have a 1 as our input, we will have a 0 as our output. Pretty straightforward. Now, oh boy, we changed this input to a 0. And what do you think will happen? Our output all of a sudden becomes a 1. It is simply the opposite. How'd you make one of these? Well, we made one earlier, and you didn't even know it. So, let's take a Type P silicone, put it right there. Let me zoom in. Type P silicone, put it right there. Put a battery on top of that. Take your semiconductor that only conducts when, what's it called? When cold, okay? Your cold semiconductor, put it right there. Put another Type P silicone, put your metal right there. Put a metal right there, and a metal right there. Make sure you insulate your gate so that no uh, accidental arcs or jumping can happen. And as you can see, I'm putting in no input. There's no input coming in from me, or if this was in a computer, from the computer. It's simply that battery that is making this work. However, if I start an input, if I change my input to a 1, my output changes to a 0. And if my input changes to a 0, my output changes to a 1. That is a simple NOT gate or an inverter gate. Um, there is also a way to make it with with a hot semiconductor, I believe. I'm not going to do that because the cold one is a lot more compact. You can also make another gate called a OR gate. Let me explain what an OR gate is. An OR gate is essentially one or the other input can be a 1 to make this output into a 1. So, oh boy, this input is a 1. Our output is also, uh-oh, what did I do? Our output changes to a 1. Let's say we don't want this input to be a 1. Okay, great. It doesn't have to be. This input can be a 0, and this input can be a 1. This one will still be a 1. And let's say we want both of our inputs to be 1s. We don't want just one or the other, we want both. You can also do that, and this will be a 1. However, if both of these are zeros, and this is still a 1, it will not conduct to either of these. And most of the time, if you make this gate in a computer or something, whenever both of those are 0, this will turn into a 0. So you may be saying, "Oh, well, that just sounds like 2 wires connected to each other." You'd be somewhat right, and I did get confused with this my first time building it. Um, 2 wires connected to each other seems great in theory, yes. So let's build it and see why it is not great in practice. So here is our output wire and our 2 input wires. Let's connect them right there. Nope, not that much. Let's connect them right there. And let's input from right here. So as you can see, whenever we input from this wire, goes down, and it does make an output, but also turns this one into an output. We don't want our other wire to turn into an output. That is not good. We want only one or the other wire. We want our 2 inputs to work separately from each other. We don't want one of them to affect the other because that can mess up a lot of stuff in your computer. So, how do we fix this? Because it will also happen if you use the other input. It's both ways around. It's just flipped. So, Kalinsky, how can I stop this? It's very simple. So, build your input wires. Make sure they are 3 pixels apart. And then put your output wire right about here. And you're going to want a type N silicone. Very specifically, type N silicone. Put it right there. Go ahead and delete 2 pixels off the front of your input wires and put type P silicone on those input wires. And then put a type N silicone on the tip of your output wire right by the other type N silicone. And this should work in theory. So if we have an input coming from our output, which is not supposed to happen, it doesn't affect our inputs. However, if I put one input, we get an output. Cool. And it doesn't backflow into our other input. Same way, the other way around. And if we do both of them at the same time, they work independently from each other. That is an OR gate. And of course, you could compress it. You could use other methods to make this. I will get into that later. The last gate that I'd like to go over is a AND gate. Essentially, what an AND gate is we have 2 inputs and 1 output. Cool. So both of our inputs are currently 0. Our output is also 0, naturally. So, what exactly is an AND gate? Well, if we change this input to a 1, our output will not change with an AND gate. It will stay as 0. Okay, well, maybe, sorry, voice crack. Maybe our bottom input was faulty. So let's go ahead and change it around. It still won't change. Your output is going to remain a 0 even though one of your inputs are a 1, and it doesn't matter which one it is. How do you fix this? You very simply make both of your inputs 1s, and that will change your output to a 1. So, how would I make this? Well, let's get our old setup. And remember, 3 pixels apart. And let's go ahead and do that. So we have our 2 inputs and our 1 output. Okay. Now, how exactly would I make this to where it would need both of them working at the same time? Well, you may be thinking, let's use one of our semiconductors. Yes, you are on the right track. And which semiconductor do you think would work best, the cold or the hot semiconductor? If you said the cold semiconductor, a cold semiconductor will work on logic gates, but only certain ones, like the NOT logic gate. The AND logic gate requires both wires to function at the same time to make a positive output. The NOT logic gate requires only one wire to shut off the other wire. So, how would we make this? Let's start with our hot semiconductor, or NTCT. Let's go ahead and put it right there. And we're going to put some type N silicone on the end of our output so that it will measure it. And then let's go ahead and chop off that right there. Cool. Let's test it. Well, that's not working, but our semiconductor was hot enough. As you can tell, if I warm up that semiconductor, it's obviously over 100 degrees Celsius. It's actually 197. Why is it not working? Well, as I explained before, our semiconductors can only be triggered and toggled by our silicones and gold. Oh boy, what's that? Oh. So, let's go ahead and add a silicone to both of them. If it's triggered by silicone, this should work perfectly. That's odd. One second, let me see what I did there. That ain't supposed to happen. Oh, I see what it was. Guys, very, very, very important. Insulate your logic gates. So, one side, oh, I should probably fix my wire. One side, it ain't working. Two sides, it ain't working. So let's do both sides because you normally need both sides. Still ain't working. Okay, great. What did I do wrong? Nothing. That would theoretically work, and as you saw without the insulator, it did work because our NTCT was hot. Let's simply change one of our inputs to make it hot. Change that over to a metal, and as you can see, whenever we heat up that metal, it's not doing anything. It's not conducting. Same with this one alone. It won't conduct on its own. But if we hit both of them at the same time, we have an output. So it requires this wire and this wire to conduct. Therefore, you have a AND logic gate. Requires wire 1 and wire 2 to make an AND wire gate. An AND logic gate. That's same with the NOT logic gates. Let me build one of those for demonstration purposes. A NOT logic gate. What did I do? Oh. A NOT logic gate is extremely simple as well in a sense. And give me a second to build it here. Be sure to insulate your gates whenever building. So our output is happening. However, if we have an input, our output will not be outputting. So without an input, our output is working. However, unlike every other logic gate in the game, except for I think XOR, which I'll get into later, probably episode 3, if we have an input, our output will not be the same. therefore making this a not logic gate. And then our OR gates, which let me go ahead and make that one. I probably should have kept these on here, shouldn't I? Our OR gate essentially means we have two wires, two inputs, as always, and our output requires either our first input or our second input, or both inputs can make an output, making this a OR gate. And that is a very, very simple way to remember this. And that's why I was elaborating on how these gates work. It takes wire 1, wire 2, or both wires to make an OR gate function. A NOT gate, whenever you have an input, the NOT gate will not have an output. And whenever you do not have an input, the output will be your NOT gate will have an output. Our AND gate, we can have uh, wire 1 or input 1, it won't work. Input 2, because we have to have input 1 and input 2 for the output to function. I'm not the greatest at explaining, but hopefully that explains it. So I'm not going to go over it again because then I'd be being a broken record. But that is the essentials. And I think I've been rambling for 30 minutes now? I'm going to try and keep these videos limited to 30 minutes, so about 5 or 6 components per video. Yeah, I will hope to see you next time. Until then, I guess I'll see you around.